Hi, my name is Christina Corriveau, and I am one of the founding partners and creators of Lit League. And Lit League is a subscription box service for kids that offers book-themed activity boxes. And part of what motivated me and my partners to found this organization was our passion for reading and our belief that reading should be an essential part of every child's life. And there's so many studies that show the benefits of reading and how the amount of reading and the joy a child takes in reading are big predictors of how successful a child will be in life. So you can never get too much reading over life, which is why we're doing this presentation on how to create a culture of reading within the home. Now I'm going to go ahead and take you to my presentation, so you'll be able to see me, both me and that. So let's go ahead and talk through some ways that you can create a culture of reading in your home. Now we're going to start with the most basic, which is reading to your kids. And while this may seem basic and like something that should be obvious, over 50% of parents don't actually spend time reading to their kids on a daily basis. And that statistic may seem shocking, but if you think about busy lives, reading can be one of those things that's easy to forget to do or to neglect, even if it's something that you believe is essential and important to your kid's life. Now, a couple of points I want to make about this. One is that I think sometimes parents don't read because they feel like it needs to be done in a set way that might not fit with their schedule. Like bedtime might be a chaotic time in your household. So bedtime reading might not work. Or maybe morning reading, which works for some families, might not work because everybody's in a rush to get somewhere. So you need to find a way to incorporate reading that works for you and for your family. For me, there are sort of two main times that work for us. Sometimes bedtime reading does, but I can't count on that happening every day. So two things I do. One is I keep a stack of books in our car because I have two children, and oftentimes one child has an activity while the other doesn't, or one child finishes an activity before the other is done. And so during that lag time, I find the opportunity to read a book. And it only takes a few minutes to read a picture book or a chapter in a larger book. So it's not a lot of time. So if I have the books available, we can either sit in the car and read, or I can bring them into wherever the event is taking place. Another time that I find is a good opportunity for reading in our home is around meal times, particularly dinner time or weekend breakfast times, because I am often finished eating before my children are. So I keep a stack of books at the end of the dining room table or nearby. And then when they finish eating, or when I finish eating, I will choose a book and read it. Doesn't take much time, and then it's a good way to get reading in. And another point I want to make about reading to kids is that a lot of times people don't stop reading to children once they are able to read for themselves, particularly once they are reading chapter books. And this is something I want to discourage you from doing, because even big kids value that cherished reading time, those extra cuddles, that extra bonding time together. It makes reading something that feels special to them and enjoyable, and something that's apart from school or work, or something that they have to do, as an added challenge. It just makes it fun. Another point about making reading a part of your home is to, whenever possible, have a variety of adults read to your children. So whatever adults are involved in your children's lives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family, friends, babysitters, whoever, get them reading to your child. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is everybody has a different approach. And there's even studies that show that mothers and fathers, or men and women, sometimes have different ways of reading, different questions that they ask, different things that they emphasize during the act of reading. So that will give your child a variety of experiences with reading aloud. And then the additional reason why it's important to have a variety of adults read to your children is because then it makes them feel like they are part of a larger community of readers. It feels like something that's not just a school activity, or not just something that their mommy does or their daddy or whoever, but something that all people want to do and should do. So it's really important to do that. Now, personally, whenever I have another adult outside the home visiting, a grandparent, or even a babysitter, I always hand them a stack of books and encourage them, maybe forcefully, to make reading a part of their time with my children, because I think that's so important, and it's a great opportunity to do so, whether that's over a meal, as I said, if my child gets done, eating early, or just sitting down on the couch and cuddling together. But reading is really important. We also believe very much in the importance of making reading fun. You want reading to be something that children associate with laughter and silliness, because children love laughter and silliness. So one way you can make reading extra fun is to play games connected to the books you read. Now, the games you play will depend on the age and interest of your children, with pre-readers or early readers. It might be games like find the letters that spell out your child's name as you go through the book, because a name is the first thing a child often learns to spell, so this can be fun for them. It could be searching for all the words that start with a certain letter. It could be searching for a specific list of high frequency or sight words like am and was and he and it, seeing how many of each of those that can be found in a book and maybe guessing ahead of time which one they'll find the most of. The possibilities are really endless. With older children, playing a rhyming game after reading a book with rhymes can be fun, or looking for, for older readers, even looking for figurative language, like find all the similes and metaphors. There's lots of different ways to incorporate games within looking at books. You can even do a book scavenger hunt, where you have a list of things for children to find in a picture or chapter book. And that could be, for a picture book for younger children, it might be something like find a capital A, find, the word child, whatever it is you want them to look for. And then for older kids, maybe find a word that for something other than, that means the same thing as smart, synonyms or things like that. And Lit League actually puts together book scavenger hunts periodically that we post on our website. And you can always check out our website, litleagueboxes.com, to see if we have any free reading downloads or other activities. You can also follow us at @LitLeagueBoxes on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, because we post these sorts of things all the time, because we want to help you interact with books with your children. Another way to engage your children in reading is to discuss books as you read them together. Even though it may seem like it might be distracting, it actually can be a way to get younger children more interested, to pause while reading aloud, to ask questions, to make predictions about what will happen, and to discuss the images that they see. Like if you see a picture of a girl or of an animal, how does that animal feel, do you think? What expression do they have? What do you think they're about to do? Simple questions like that. And with older kids, you can talk about the books, after they've read them, if they're reading independently at the time. Now, we know that with older kids, especially in chapter books, parents don't always have the time to read the entire book, which is why one of the things we provide in our Lit League boxes are book-specific vocabulary bookmarks that also contain discussion questions, general ones you can ask, and also we include discussion questions and answers to help you in preparing to talk about your books. But whatever way you do it, talking to your children about their books will get them engaged in another way. Now, these are just a few ways that you can get your children engaged in reading. Let's look at some other ways that you can do that. So one way is to let your kids catch you reading actual books. Remember that reading on electronic devices doesn't have the same impact. Now, the reason why we want our children to catch us reading on actual books is because we want them to think that reading is something we do too, that it's not just something we make them do. And children often model what the adults around them are doing, right? Think about the ways that children like to play cook in pretend kitchens, or pretend to run a restaurant or a store, right? Things they see adults doing are things that they want to do. So if they see us reading, then that will make them want to read too. So it's a way to teach them that reading is important without having to say a word. Now, the reason why not on electronic devices is because when children see us on computers or iPads or smartphones, they can't tell what we're doing. And even if we say we're reading, it's not going to have the same impact as them actually seeing us physically reading with a book. So even if you are somebody who prefers to read on electronic devices, I would encourage you to find ways to be intentional about getting your children to catch you reading actual books. So even if that means setting the stage for such a moment, like when you know they're going to come down in the morning and pulling out a book, so the first thing they see you doing in the morning is reading, or for those kids who pop out of bed at night during bedtime while you are waiting to tuck them back in, be holding a book. So when they come out for you to put them back into bed, they see you reading. So just find opportunities to have them catch you reading. I talked about the fact that reading is an important predictor of child success. A tangible predictor of child success that's been found in study after study is the number of books a child has at home. That is a direct correlation between the number of books at home and the educational level a child is able to achieve later in life. Now, I think part of this has to do with the fact that the types of parents who surround their children with books are the types who generally care about education and will be the type to nurture and support their child's educational ambitions. So to set yourself up with that kind of household, you want to help your child have their own personal library with physical books on display, both for yourself and for your children. So there's a number of ways that you can achieve this without spending large amounts of money. One is you can have a shelf dedicated to library books. Most libraries will let you check out anywhere from 15 to 40 books at a time. So you can have a shelf that you are constantly replenishing with new books from the library. So you can rotate through books that way, both for yourself and for your children. Another way is to go to used bookstores. There's lots of those around that you can pick up books for very reasonable, or even thrift stores like Goodwill stores and such often carry used books that you can get at very inexpensive prices. So there's a lot of ways to stock up on books without spending a lot. Yard sales are a great place to go for that too. And speaking of the library, another way to get your children excited about reading is to visit your local library often. Now, obviously, one of the reasons to do so is so you can actually get books in their hands, and children being able to pick out their own books, this is something that they really treasure, and that sense of ownership really helps them to connect to the books in a different way. And even just the act of owning a library card and having to be responsible for holding on to that and remembering to bring it is a great way to teach your child responsibility in addition to a passion for reading. But in addition to the books themselves, libraries offer so many great activities throughout the year, especially during summer. There's a lot of programs then, but even during the school year, they offer story times, music times, all sorts of things to get your children excited about being somewhere where books are valued and at the center of all activities. Another way to create a culture of reading in the home is to give books as gifts. If we give books as gifts to our children or to other people, and your children see that, it tells them that a book is something valuable. A book is something worthy of being a gift. So a couple of ways that this can take place in your home. One is if you are a home that has the Easter Bunny visit or the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, those people, those creatures, however you want to call them, can bring books as gifts. If your child, like in this picture above, receives gifts in their basket from the Easter Bunny, that tells them not only do my mom and dad think books are important, but the Easter Bunny thinks books are important. So that's one way to communicate without having to say anything, that books are something to be valued. Also, if you're going to a birthday party for another child, get your child involved in picking out a book for that child as their gift. Going to a tangible bookstore, even better, because then they get to see that there's an exciting and fun place they can visit to pick out books from a vast collection of them, that new book smell, and have them pick out a book to help you wrap to then gift to a friend or family member. You can even give book themed gifts. Like if you see down below, this gift was enjoyed by a young boy, Captain Underpants, as well as some silly underwear that goes along with that theme. Because again, children like to be silly and to make it more fun. And our boxes, Lit League's book boxes, are intended both to be enjoyed at home and also to be given as gifts. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, each one comes in a gift box, which has, that one has a book on top of it, the book Hello Ocean by Pam Munoz Ryan. And each box comes accompanied with a picture book or a chapter book, as well as the vocabulary bookmark I mentioned, discussion questions and answers, which I also mentioned, and then the materials to complete 4 to 5 activities that are themed around the book. So in this case, these would be a box of ocean activities with seashells and an ocean painting activity and other things to go along with it. Now, another way to make reading a natural and fun part of your house, but also to add enrichment, is to create a word or sentence wall to make learning new words part of daily life. Now, you don't want it to feel like a drill, and you don't want it to feel like a forced challenge. So you want to make it feel natural. Felt boards or magnet boards work great. In my home, what I do is I take a magnet board and it's posted on the door right near our dining room table. So while we're sitting at mealtime, it can be easily seen. And I use it with my younger daughter, who's still an emerging reader. And so every week I write a new sentence, and then I have her a few times a week, not every single day, but whenever I think about it, whenever we have a little lag time at the dinner table, I ask her, or breakfast table, I ask her to look over and read the sentence. And then once she's mastered the sentence, I change it to a new one. And that's just a way we do it. So I just make it something fun. And it gives her a sense of pride too, being able to read the sentence, being able to share with other people like her big sister that she can read the sentence. And it's just a good way to incorporate the use of words and new words in daily life. So you can do it as part of a storytelling act, like the example of the felt board, or just part of practicing high frequency words or the week's vocabulary with your schoolwork. Or sometimes I'll post sentences that have to do with upcoming activities or things that happened that week so that they have a connection to what's going on in real life. Now, another way to expand the learning fun, and part of the actual initial inspiration for Lit League, is to create a book club within your family or with your child's friends. So this doesn't have to be something super involved. It doesn't have to be something that feels overwhelming. It can be something that meets as frequently or infrequently as you want. Again, it can just be a book club with one child and a parent or parents, or it can be with a book club with siblings or a book club with friends. Now, all you need to do to start a book club is have a book and an activity to go with that book. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be that involved. So for a picture book, you could simply pick a date, have children over, and instead of having a traditional play date, make it a book club play date where you read the book and then you have an activity, or even an activity and a fun snack that's paired with that book. For older children, you want to allow enough time in between meetings if you're going to meet regularly, or even if you're just going to do it a one-time thing, allow enough time for the children to all read the same chapter book. And then same thing, you'd pick a time, you know, probably with older kids, since you're not reading it together, it'd be good to have some discussion questions to refresh everybody on it, have them talk it out, and then again, have activities to go along with it. Now, one of the things we've done at Lit League is designed our boxes to lend themselves to creating book clubs within your family or friends. So there are a lot of shared activities. There's a lot of games that are fun, played with more than one. With our picture book boxes, we have physical playtime because little kids need to move that accompany the theme of each book. And then they're designed so that you could easily pair them with friends who decide to get involved in Lit League as well, or you could do them with siblings, however you like to do it. And the initial inspiration behind Lit League came from one of the founding members who started a book club for her daughter when her daughter was in kindergarten. And both this founder and I have an experience teaching high school English. I teach college as well. And we saw how when children were older, they often lost interest in reading. And there's actually a statistic called decline by 9, known by educators, which cites the fact that, and a lot of these studies came out in 2019, but there were others before this, that cite the fact that at age 9, there's a huge drop off in reading interest and passion for reading. Just to cite one statistic, children who are 8 years old during the study cited that they were over 50% of them cited an interest, noted interest and passion for reading. And that love of reading for 9-year-olds, those same 9-year-olds, dropped from over 50% to around 30%. And that was just in 1 year. And so part of what motivated us to start this book club, and the numbers keep going down from there, is because we want to fight that decline by 9. We want to keep children interested and engaged in reading. And there's 2 reasons I think that decline happened, although there's lots of factors, but one is that around 9 is around the age a lot of children stop being read to completely by caregivers because they can read independently. And so it's no longer this fun, fuzzy, warm experience. It's something that they have to work at independently. And for some children, it still feels like work at age 9. It's not easy. And then another reason is that around age 9 is a lot of times when the academic pressures associated with reading really come to bear, where all subjects really depend on them reading texts and absorbing them, and they're not doing as much fun reading if that's not something that their family is intentionally including in their lives. So we try to fight this, and a book club is just one way to do that, to make it seem like something fun and something that we do as a community and all together. Now, these are many fun ways to make reading exciting and entertaining and something that your children would love to do. But we want to show you some more ways that you can do this. So let's go ahead and look at some more ways that we can make reading fun and exciting for our children. Now, we've talked about book clubs, but another way that you can make them fun is by finding themed books to go along with family outings and trips. These can be read ahead of the experience or taken along to enjoy. And you might even plan outings related to specific books. So for example, in terms of taking books to go along with themed outings, if you're going to a classical music concert, such as the example in the bottom right-hand corner, you might bring a book about classical music or conductors. You know, when I took my daughters to a concert for the first time, this book, Zen, 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 a Violin, was one that I always brought along because it's a great book that teaches about a lot of the instruments in the orchestra. And so we could read it before we went and then inside the theater right before the show went on to remind ourselves of all the instruments that we would be able to listen to. You can also plan outings, like I said, to go along with the book. So like for the middle example, there's a book called Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library that inspired a group visit from a book club to an escape room to go along with that book. Or if you're planning a vacation somewhere that fits really nicely with a book and you want to add that as part of the vacation experience, you can do it. Like if you're going to Wisconsin and you make a chance to stop by an old world Wisconsin where you can see the little house sort of inspired cabins and all of that, or any log cabins you might visit anywhere in the United States, or thinking about, you know, kind of pioneer days, bring along Little House on the Prairie and read it either along the trip, if it's a long trip, or before you go, and then just revisit some of the excerpts as you're there to remind yourself and ground yourself in that place through the book. Just really brings the book to life for your children. And just another simple way to do it, you know, whenever I'm going to take my children to snow, since we live in California, so we don't get to enjoy all of the seasons that I enjoyed as a child growing up in Illinois, we always prepare for this time in the snow, reading books about winter and snow outings like sledding and skiing and all of that. So we read some books before we go and then take them along to read as part of it, to really enhance the experience. So a lot of the ones we mentioned so far are sort of easy daily things you can do or intentional ways to include reading. You can also make it a point of having sort of more sustained projects related to books to get your children excited about them. So one thing you can do is help your children write their own stories or poems, because that sense of authorship will really get them engaged in the writing community, and which will also get them excited to read. Now, obviously, poems are a little bit less involved, and that can be done in a really easy, short way. A lot of our book boxes involve poem activities, and currently on our website, we have a spring reading page with free downloads, and one of them is a page of spring poems to be enjoyed by children and their families, as well as prompts for doing imitations or responses to some poetic responses to all of those poems if you would like. Because again, getting children writing on their own helps them engage with reading and writing and just the power and beauty of words. In terms of writing their own stories, you could even go so far as to create an actual book with illustrations as a family. This could even be used as a holiday gift for family members. So there are lots of ways to create a book. It could be something as simple as just stapling together construction paper, white construction paper, and doing your illustrations and writing in that. You can even buy these bound books, different places that are easy to use. So just as a personal example, we decided, my family, to create, well, sort of organically came about, to create a holiday book that we started a year before gifting. So not this past Christmas, but the one before. My daughters and I are reading a book called The Christmas Quiet, and just naturally around the house we started coming up with other Christmas sayings. So in the book it talks about, you know, Christmas is a quiet time, you know, peeking at presents quiet, decorating the tree quiet. So we came up with, my daughters and I started throwing out Christmas is a cozy time, like hot cocoa cozy, sitting in front of the fire cozy. And then we started going into Christmas is a slippery time, you know, sledding hill slippery, ice skating slippery. And so I ended up typing up all of those and then realized that we could create our own book with all of these things we'd come up with. And so I organized it, and then it became a whole family project where we each took on some of the illustrations and we worked on it throughout a whole year, because I wanted it to feel fun, not something stressful or pressured, but something we could all enjoy together. It was a fun family activity. And then slowly over the course of the year, we worked through it and got it done. And since I knew we wanted to gift these and I wanted the children to feel published, I ended up using a photo book website. Shutterfly is what I used. And I scanned their illustrations, and then I typed in the words of our book into the caption section of a photo album, and then I printed them out. So I used the photo album template to make our books, and then we were able to gift them to grandparents and aunts and uncles, and the children had a great sense of accomplishment, feeling like, yes, this is my book. You can also have your children write fan fiction. Fan fiction is when you respond to well-known book lines, book characters, and create your own stories about them. So this is great if your children have any particular characters or storylines they're really interested in. So we have an example here, this Peggy Periwinkle and the Invisible Monster, which was some fan fiction inspired by the Strawberry Shortcake characters. But you could do it for anything. So if you have a child who's really into Ladybug Girl, for example, you might do a Ladybug Girl book. Your child might be inspired to come up with a story for what might Ladybug Girl do now. If you have a child who's really into Magic Treehouse and history, then maybe you come up with a time period that's really interesting to them. You guys research it together, and then they can create a story of what might happen going back in time there. There's lots of endless opportunities for fan fiction. Another great way to get your kids excited about reading is to set reading goals. So there's a lot, you can set short-term goals, longer-term goals. It can be as simple as, themed reading for specific months, like April is National Poetry Month. So I set a goal of trying to have my children read aloud or have me read one poem a day throughout the month of April. That's just a fun reading goal that we often do. Also during summer, Lit League hosts a 100 Books of Summer challenge. So I'll show you this. And that may sound overwhelming, 100 books, but if you think about 100 picture books, they're pretty short, or 100 chapters if you choose to do that with an older child. During the summer, there's something called summer slide that often happens where children lose some of their reading and math abilities in particular. And so having them read aloud in an intentional way during the summer is a great way to avoid that summer slide. And it may, like I said, it may sound overwhelming, but it doesn't take that long. And I usually start my 100 Books of Summer at the beginning of June because schoolwork tends to be light and mostly review. And so by the end of June last summer, we were about 40 books into our 100 Books of Summer. Now, one thing I want to mention about reading goals is one, I think, misconception people have with older children who are capable of reading and interested in reading chapter books, is they think that then picture books should be set aside as something babyish or not important. But I would encourage you with older children, or as your children get older, to not do that. Certainly there are some books, like some board books or the step one sort of introduction to reading book that are simplistic, but there are a lot of beautiful, rich picture books that actually have higher vocabulary than early reader chapter books in particular, and even some middle grade chapter books. There's just some vocabulary and world building and introduction to time periods and people and history that doesn't happen as frequently sometimes in particularly the early chapter books. So one challenge I did with my older daughter is the summer before 3rd and 4th grade for her 100 Books of Summer. We worked our way through as much of the Caldecott list as we could, because the Caldecott list is rich with beautifully written children's books. And some of them, I think it dates back to the 1930s. So you get some interesting slices of time as you go through those books. But they're going to be great ways. And when you do reading goals, especially big ones like 100 Books of Summer, you can choose to accompany reasonable kid chosen rewards with those. That's up to you. I know parents feel differently about rewards. What we do in my house with 100 Books of Summer, food is something we all enjoy. So 50 books in, the children get to pick a sweet treat, like going out to ice cream or getting a baked good from their favorite bakery, something like that. And then when they hit 100 books, they get to go to a restaurant of their choice with the parent of their choice. So I know my youngest daughter, she chose Chuck E. Cheese last summer. I think my oldest one chose to go to a burger joint, but somewhere that they're excited about. Again, just the goal is to get them excited about reading and make it always feel fun. Just to emphasize a point I've been touching on throughout the presentation, you want to make everything about reading about the joy of the experience. It should always be about the fun. And with Lit League, we do that by incorporating art activities and cooking activities within our book boxes. But at home, I've given you so many different ways to do that, but you want reading to be something filled with joy. And on a related note, try not to be overly concerned if reading doesn't come easily to your child. Not all children read at the same pace, even though there are state standards that dictate when we want our children to be competent readers by. Just know that for some children it comes naturally, and for some it will be a struggle, and that's not something to be overly concerned with. I have friends who are high school English teachers who did not become solid readers until 2nd grade. My own older daughter really struggled with reading. It's not something that came naturally. Now, you can notice I say here, if you're worried, don't convey that to your child. Now, children pick up on everything we say. We never want our children to associate reading with struggle or failure or make them feel like they're not good enough. So I would say internalize that worry. Don't ever talk about it in front of them, because children are little sponges. They pick up on all of that. And certainly don't ever say it directly to them. Instead, find intentional ways to help them support their reading. Like with my daughter, it was a lot of sitting down, working through, like phonetic awareness didn't come naturally to her. So sitting down and really working through sounding out words and working through flashcards, not in an excessive way. I tried to just, I didn't go hard with it during the school year, but during the summer, as part of that 100 Books of Summer, we really, really sat down and worked on reading. And even if she got frustrated and wasn't always enjoying it, I tried to keep my tone always positive, free of pressure. And now She's above grade level as a reader, and I have to get her to turn off the flashlight at night because she wants to keep reading, which is what we want to aim for. We want our children to love to read. Feel free to visit our website for further ideas about reading, or again, to check us out at Lit League Boxes at both Instagram, all three, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, for more ideas about how to get your kids excited about reading, because that's really what it's all about. If we can get reading something your child loves, that's the best thing we can do for them. Thank you so much for listening.